I thought I'd take a day or so and play with some winter waves. This painting was one that my mother had collected from a watercolorist, Robinson, and I challenged my watercolor students to try it. It appears quite simple, but it does take some basic techniques to make this wave work. I like the looseness of it. There is hard and soft edges. There are dry areas when painting, and there are some very wet areas. And it's important to know which approach to use for what technique you want. What's the look you want, and think it through at the beginning. You can't see it well here because I use a very, very light pencil to just basically sketch out where I want the wave to be. The peak of his wave is basically right in the middle of the horizontal picture plane, and I wanted it a little more off to one side. Mixing up some burnt sienna and a little ultramarine blue and perhaps a touch of Prussian blue here, trying to get a nice warm gray for the background. I didn't blend it enough. You saw initially that had a streak in it. You want to blend your colors well into the brush. Trying to keep that leading edge rather wet so it will blend nicely. I thought I'd try this to get a blended frothy area, and in this case I've somewhat lost that sharp white against the sky that Robinson had in his painting. I have a softened edge, and now I'm blending it, or blotting it, with a paper towel to bring back some variation in the foam. I'm adding in some sap green. It's the only green I have on my watercolor palette. Nope, pull that back, not my only. You can see a couple small tubs there of other greens, but it's the one I use the most. It makes nice neutrals. I use it mostly for mixing. I wanted the distant water, the water beyond the wave, to be a little more in the green family, so it would be a little more warm to bring it forward. Adding a hint of blue into the sky to push it back. A hint of the Prussian or phthalo blue, and some cerulean. Some rough spraying of the forewater will help break up the wave in the foreground. I also blotted it because I added a little too much water initially. It's always that balance between water and paint and dry or damp paper. As you can see, out of the probably 4 colors that I've used, that is the burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, a little phthalo blue, and some sap green. Look at the variety of colors I have by mixing those pigments. With watercolor, it's easy to get a variety going on. Bringing in some clear water to create a softened edge. blotting it with a rolled paper towel. It's not really rolled, it's kind of twisted. I twist it to get an irregular, lightened shape. Back into mixing the paint. I'm now using a round brush. Before it was a flat wash brush. Here I've added a little bit of a violet to deepen the shadow under the crest of that wave. I am using the Robinson painting as a takeoff spot, as just an inspiration, and I am not trying to copy it, but employing a variety of techniques to get the textures and image that I want. Here I have a damp brush that I've flattened on a sponge or paper towel to splay the brush, the hairs, to get a rougher edge. You can see I have limited tools. My flat wash brush, my round brush, and so far, beyond the paper towels, that's all I've used. Here's a hint of burnt umber mixed in with some ultramarine blue. It's always one of my favorite darks, and for me it works great for rocks. I've added a hint of yellow ochre, and I am bringing it down, making strong angular marks to contrast the rock area against the softer washes of the water. I also am leaving a lot of dry spaces. You can see I'm using this wash on dry so that I have some sharp edges and lights against those rocks. Then I lay on my plastic wrap and try to design it so that the underwashes are rock-like. I just lifted a hint of that to get some darker color on the upper edge of that rock. At this point, you just have to wait. Coming back in with a little more of the cerulean blue as the sky has dried to add a contrast in that background. Turn my brush over so that that sharp edge lines right along the horizon and helps to define it. Adding a very washy, wet, shadowy area in the foam. Cleaning the brush and lifting some to make it even softer. I clean the brush by just washing it in the clear water and drying it on the sponge or paper towel to remove most of the water so it's damp. Adding some very subtle waves in the background. Now I can lift the plastic wrap And you can see those great textures that creates for the rocks. It's a quick and easy technique that works so well, especially for rocks and for other things. Burnt umber. Little black, ivory black in there. And some sharp, crisp lines to define some cracks and shadow areas in the rocks. You can see how I do the brush strokes in the air before I actually lay them down on the paper. It helps me think physically where I want those marks to go. Once you're comfortable with the direction, then you can lay down the brush right on the tip of the hairs to get a sharp, clean line. Just picking up some of the residual bluish green paint that's there to wash in the lighter, closer, foamy areas of the water. Whoops, I've got a particle there I'm trying to get rid of. Just leave it alone. It's not pigment, it's not dissolving. I got out of the way enough of my paint. I can take care of that later. Keeping thinner lines here to indicate those striations that happen after the waves break up and you have bubbles along the surface. Bringing in a few more shadows under that breaking wave. Also, by bouncing this color around the painting, it ties it all together. Little hint of that darker background helps pop the foam of the wave into the foreground. I want to match it a little bit better on the other side so that there's a consistent, distant water. Clean brush, yellow ochre, bringing some of that warmth into those foreground rocks. The yellow ochre warmth will bring those rocks forward as the cerulean blue pushes the sky to the background. These are all very basic techniques that we use all the time. Why? Because they work. Breaking up that white water area a little bit, remembering that water always finds its own level, so a lot of those lines on the water are absolutely horizontal. A little spray into the wave. I blocked out the rocks so it wouldn't blend in the rocks, but would soften the water and the foamy area. I use my spray bottle a lot. Stepping back, taking a look, see what else it might need. Softening and blending some areas. Little blot for texture. So I did this first painting, and then I flipped the board over that I'm working on, that pad of watercolor paper. I flipped it over because I had divided it in half with masking tape, and I did a second painting on the other end, just for comparison. Here's the first painting, full view, and here's the second painting. As you can see, they're similar, but they're very different. Try it, play around, have some fun. Please subscribe below and check out my Patreon channel and my website.